The Quran also distinguishes between prophets and messengers. All messengers are prophets, but not all prophets are messengers. Messengers are prophets who fulfill two conditions. They are assured of having followers, while not all prophets have followers. In fact, many biblical prophets were ridiculed, persecuted, condemned, even executed. And the second condition that is fulfilled by the messenger is that messengers bring with them the book of law. Messengers are lawgivers. In other words, messengers are founders of great religions. And hence the Quran accepts such biblical figures as Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad himself as the messengers of God. That is why in classical Islam, Muslims should protect the people of the book. They should protect people who worship God according to the law of Moses, meaning the Jews. They should protect people who worship God according to the law of Jesus, the Gospels, meaning Christians, because those people are brothers in faith to Muslims. The Quran also talks about Jesus in many chapters. Here is what the Quran confirms about Jesus. The Quran confirms the virgin birth of Jesus. The Quran confirms that Jesus was the promised Messiah. That usually comes as a surprise to my students. So the Quran confirms that Jesus was a Messiah. The Quran confirms that Jesus came from God. The Quran confirms that Jesus' message comes from the divine source, the gospel. What the Quran does reject is as follows. The Quran does reject that Jesus is divine or himself, or is associated with God, or is the second person of the Trinity. Because according to the Muslim profession of faith, no one can be associated with God. This is a sin. And the Quran also suggests that Jesus' resurrection did not happen. There is one verse in the Quran that says, I paraphrase, that Jews thought they killed him, but in fact they did not. And there was an interpretation of the sentence that Jesus was somehow able to escape the crucifixion. He escaped to India and spent the rest of his life in India. Now, why does Islam reject Jesus' resurrection? I believe because for Christians, the resurrection is the main proof that Jesus is divine. No one else was resurrected. Only Jesus was on the third day. And for Christians, this is another proof that Jesus is the Son of God. Since Muslims do not believe that Jesus was the Son of God, they also deny physical resurrection. Now, at this point, my students ask me, how is it possible for Muslims, on the one hand, to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, on the other hand, to deny that Jesus is divine? Now, the answer is simple. It all depends on how you interpret the word Messiah. What do you mean by Messiah? Jews are waiting for their Messiah to come. Christians are waiting for the second coming of Jesus. But for the Jews, the Messiah is a human being. He is not divine. For Christians, the Messiah was and will be divine. For Muslims, Jesus was not divine, and therefore he is the Messiah, but like Jews, they believe that he is a purely human character.